Hey everyone, Tony D with another hot take. The continuing saga of Congressman Van Drew continues, and Tim Pool has a good video on this. He talks about living in South Jersey, but he's a new guy and to the area, and I'm an old guy in this area, so I kind of know a little bit more of the history in that how people in South Jersey kind of view their politics. Mostly, people in this area tend to be they're mostly Democrats. And they have the classic view of Democrats that Democrats are for the working class, Republicans are for the rich. And Democrats tend to be union guys or pro-union guys. And that's the way it's been for the most part. However, in New Jersey, and I wouldn't say especially in South Jersey, but all over New Jersey, really, there is a lot of corruption. And since the Democrats tend to get elected more than Republicans, it tends to be more on the Democratic side. So you've had case after case after case of either corruption where a governor had to resign, or somebody got caught up in an FBI sting, or you had guys like John Corzine who didn't get arrested but did some stuff that felt pretty corrupt and that people didn't like. I forget which party he was in. Was he a Democrat too? Can't remember. Anyhow, the general feeling, I think, for the most part, is that most people have a kind of blasé attitude when it comes to politics. They're not super into it, but when they are, they tend to be, rooting for the little guy, and they often perceive the Democrats as being like that, rooting for the little guy. It's when they either go so far off the rails, or a Republican actually manages to sort of capture that spirit that they go the other way, which is rare, but it happens. I mean, we had Christine Todd Whitman as our governor. I didn't think she was particularly bad governor. I didn't really like her. She did one thing which I thought was weird, which is for decades people complained about this one stretch of road that went into Philadelphia, and they never did a damn thing about it in New Jersey. It was called Admiral Wilson Boulevard. It's basically route, is it 130? Yeah, I think it's 130 as it goes into Philadelphia. So it would be from, what's that road? I forget, but Admiral Wilson Boulevard was full of strip clubs, like the sleaziest strip clubs, and rundown motels that for years were just havens for drugs, all sorts of criminality, and prostitutes, street prostitutes, like the kind you'd see in movies walking down the street, but not the kind of people you'd see in movies, as in these people. I mean, if you go back and Google some YouTube videos of news reports, I mean, just a horror show of drugs and prostitution. Just the worst. For decades, people complained about this. Nothing was done. Like, practically nothing. You know what they do. They send the cops there, they roust everybody, and then they go away. So then the Republican National Convention came to Philadelphia, and since it's close to South Jersey, they knew that people would be going in and out of South Jersey to get to the convention. So Christy Todd Whitman literally just bulldozed everything that was remotely sleazy on that road, and it's all gone. They even got rid of a strip club, which was one of the strip clubs was actually like a real business, and it's sleazy. It's a strip club, but it was, it was a more high-end strip club that was making money, as opposed to the other ones, which just seemed to be like barely hanging on. And but they're all gone. They basically forced everybody out. They knocked down these buildings. They carted them away and planted trees. So there'd be little parks and park benches and stuff. And people were just flabbergasted that this happened because for years they asked. I mean, there was this notorious motel that was there since I was high school called the Oasis Motel. They used it in the movie 12 Monkeys. And it was just, the joke was in my high school, after prom, you going to the Oasis Motel? Ha ha ha. Because it was just this disgusting, legendary, disgusting place that, you'd have to be like, really down on your luck, and which is why they used it for 12 Monkeys. And, so they tore that down too. So anyway, New Jersey, yeah, as you could see, corruption, lots of corruption, and we kind of, I don't know if we accept it, but we kind of know the deal, that you're only going to get so much out of politicians. And it's a shame because, New Jersey's pretty heavy regulated and pretty heavily taxed. Everybody complains about the taxes here and the car insurance, especially the property taxes. And usually all the politicians promise to lower all that. Certainly Christie did. Didn't really work. There's very strong unions here. And, Christie fought the teachers union. Didn't really work out. And he was kind of a bully boy, pretty corrupt, in my view. So, we kind of try both sides of the aisle here. And is South Jersey Trump country? It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I've seen Trump signs in a few places. I saw them in a lot of rich areas of South Jersey, like really rich areas. I saw them in areas there are areas in South Jersey where a lot of cops live. I saw them there. But, in South Jersey, or in Jersey in general, you're not really too open about your support for Trump. If you're a Trump supporter, you kind of keep it on the down low because there's so many people who are angry about Trump here. You kind of don't want to put that sign on your front lawn, or you might have people egging your house or whatever. So you can kind of understand that deal. So most people kind of they don't want to be bothered with the argument that's inevitably going to happen. Now, the other factor in this is that Trump was a casino magnate back in the day when they legalized gambling in Atlantic City in the 80s. So he came in and he pretty much threw his weight around a lot like he throws his weight around as president. He was obnoxious. He was always in the newspaper saying something about somebody. And the local rumors here is that he stiffed a lot of people during the construction of his various casinos. There's all sorts of stories. I have to believe that at least some of them are true because Trump sort of strikes me as that kind of guy that he tries to get away with not paying people when he can. Now, the other side of that is unions tend to be corrupt here too. And they tend to rake people over the coals, and you're trying to, when you're trying to do business, you got to push back on them. So I kind of understand what would probably be some of Trump's pushback, and some of it would probably just be hyperbolic, propaganda from the other side saying, "Oh, Trump's a bad guy," and that's kind of the union pushback. Like, bad PR is definitely the fallout when you push back on the workers, because that's one of the things the workers can do. They can spread a lot of bad rumors about you, which may or may not be true. I mean, one story about Trump, and I kind of believe it, is that a guy who built him wardrobes, like hand-carved wardrobes, and it cost him, he promised him thousands of dollars for these wardrobes. The guy delivered the wardrobes, and Trump didn't like them, and then negotiated the price and basically told him, well, if you don't like it, sue me, take me to court. And the guy ended up taking pennies on the dollar and really losing money out on the deal. So that's the kind of thing I could definitely see Trump doing if you got it on his bad side. I don't know how true it is, though. Maybe it's a totally fictitious story that people made up to bash him because they don't like him because he has lots of money. And he was very high profile. He was always in the newspaper. He's always making these grandiose statements. he was like a lot of the people who came in Atlantic City and said, "Oh, the tax base, oh, it's gonna take care of old people and rebuild the schools." And yeah, like none of that happened. In fact, I was when I was in an improv group, we performed at an Atlantic City, I guess it was a middle school, and the kids there kind of scared the hell out of us in that one of them wanted, these were like, I don't know, 12-year-old kids. One talked about being a professional gambler, and the other one, one of the girls talked about being a stripper. And their school was literally across the street from casinos. So it was not a good situation. And it was an old school. Like it wasn't like they built a new school and it was brand new and had great facilities. No, this was the same old school. They just built a casino across the street, and they were seeing all kinds of horrific things, no doubt, on this school because they had a problem with prostitution along the strip in Atlantic City for a long time too. And the whole city of Atlantic City has changed thanks to the casinos, and that's partly on Trump. It's not totally on him. There's a lot of other people rolling in. But Atlantic City had a history. It was a very corrupt history. It was corrupt before he got there. It was corrupt after he left. And but they bulldozed a lot of that history to make way for these giant chain stores that I don't know who would shop at these places, quite frankly. But you go to Atlantic City now, and it's kind of doesn't have a lot of the characters missing. It used to have a lot of character. There would be old buildings in the corner you could find. There was Roger's Famous Hot Dogs, which had karaoke on the boardwalk. They tore that down. You had the Steel Pier. That was very historic. And Trump tore that down. He bought it and tore it down. Then he vowed to rebuild it. But, what are you going to, really at that point, the whole point was to save the history. That was a value. So this is part of the reason people hate Trump, but they also kind of recognize that, he came here and he spent a lot of money. Did everybody get that money? No. I mean, did they get all the money that was promised? Probably not. But, he's probably no worse or better than any other casino magnates who came in. In fact, there was the Hustler Casino that, I believe it was a Hustler Casino that fell to pieces, and then I think Trump eventually bought it. There was the battle between the casinos and the little old woman who didn't want to sell her house, and they built around her. I think that was the Hustler Casino, and then that was eventually sold to Trump. I don't remember totally the history, but the thing is, it's a long history with Trump here, and it's mixed just like everything else, Some people love him because he's the Don and he's got lots of money and people admire that. But if you had any kind of personal dealings with him or his companies and things didn't go your way, then you're kind of like, F that guy. I hate him. He ruined my life, or whatever happened to you. So it's a mixed bag in South Jersey. Tends to lean pretty blue. Even farther south. But the bottom line is Trump has brought the economy back, and most people vote with their wallet. He's an incumbent president. And Van Drew saw the writing on the wall. The fact that his staff made a big show out of quitting is, to me, indicates that they're not flipping Republican with him. So even if you were going to say, well, Mr. Van Drew, I'm not going to go with you, you'd have to make a show out of your outrage in order to get back into the Democratic Party on somebody else's staff. I mean, because that's kind of where the Democrats are. If you're not, oh, Trump all the time, you're not really a Democrat these days. Because they talk to Democrats, and that's kind of all they talk about is Trump this and Trump that. Which is sad, because I think the upcoming election is going to be very close to what happened in the UK. You're going to see a lot of Democrats just shocked at how shellacked they're going to get as people. And I think there are a lot of secret Trump voters. There are a lot of people who are going to vote for Trump who just aren't going to tell anybody. They're just going to go in a voting booth and hit Trump and walk out, and they'll just lie their ass off if they have to, or they just won't tell, I didn't vote. They'll just say, "Oh, I didn't vote. I don't know what happened. I don't know how Trump got elected," because they want to vote with their wallet, but they don't want to take the fallout. And really, why should they? Why should everybody get all upset about this? Okay, it's not life or death. Trump is not going to send you to the gulag. And even if a guy like Biden gets in, it'll just be business as usual. So there, the idea that this is the election of our lives is an overblown thing designed to try to get Democrats out to the polls. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party is split between the neoliberals and the extreme left, and most of the moderates are just going to hold their nose and either not vote or vote for Trump. Hate to tell you.